not a Will Smith song. It's actually a somebody else song that Will Smith
remade,
sampled.
That's true.
Who is it? Who is just the two of us? Grover Washington. Junior.
Not to be confused with Grover Washington Sr.
Correct. Who probably was nobody.
Well, we are officially live as wonderful Tim Green singing in the background. We couldn't ask for nicer music.
Could you hear him?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's awesome.
And so welcome to our first TOSAchat tweet and talk. It's a little experiment we're going to try here and see how it goes. So welcome.
So exciting. Do we know we have people with us?
So yes, viewers, that's a good question. We have 4 viewers, but here's just for those of you that joined in, I am Coach Ben at Cogswell_Ben on Twitter, and I am here first joined by Jody.
That's me.
Introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Jody Green at Peerless Green on Twitter.
And so far we also have Carly.
Hi, I'm Carly Mora. I'm at Carly Mora on Twitter. I am going to go grab my headphones, though, so we don't have an echo. Hold on one sec.
Echo.
All right. So you, Jody, you introduced us a little bit, but why don't you go ahead and tell us what your new role is, and then also what do you think it means when I say district initiative?
Okay, so I am in real life, I'm an ed tech academic coach, but right now I'm an assistant principal at a middle school for the next, or an interim assistant principal at a middle school since January and up through probably the end of April. So when I think about district initiatives, I think about all of the best practices that our district is trying to get our teachers to encompass and use on a daily basis. That's what it means to me.
And so thank you. And same question, Carly. Carly's just jumping in. I know, Carly, you didn't hear this. But so first question, a little bit more. Who are you, your current role? I know we did a little bit of a previous introduction. What does it mean to have a district initiative to you?
So I'm Carly Mora. I am a teacher on special assignment. I focus on technology integration, and I'm also a computer science teacher. So my role is, we are a STEM magnet school at Sun Terrace Elementary, so I support teachers in the classroom. I'm actually only 50%, and I support teachers in the classroom with technology integration, and then I also teach every class K-5 computer science at the school. So a district initiative. Initiative to me means when they say that something's happening that we have to do, that there's something that's going on at the district level that's top down, and that means that we're moving forward with it, and we better get on board.
So one thing I noticed kind of that you said, Carly, is it seems like it's like not very much of a choice as far as district initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, usually, yes. I mean, usually when we hear of a district initiative, it's usually something that when we hear that we're doing it, it's the first time the majority of us has heard of it. There might be a small panel of, experts or teacher leaders who were on a panel sometimes, but more often than not, it's just something that comes up. Either, I mean, it's a product that we've purchased and that we have to use, or that there's something that's legal that we have to do. But usually it's something that that we're not. It's not something that we chose to do usually, and it's something that's it's usually a top down. Yes.
So what about you, Jody? Would you kind of say it's kind of a little bit of the same stigma for you?
I would say it's a little bit of both, but it's kind of interesting because most of our district initiatives, what I would consider to be our district initiatives, have been around for a really long time. So we're all kind of, I don't want to say bought in, but they're things that we're all already doing. So for example, using GLAD strategies is one of our district initiatives. We've been using GLAD strategies for 15 years. It's been around for what seems like forever. Every single teacher in our district is trained. And then the same with thinking maps. That's been around for quite some time. Definitely, I would agree with there's some aspect of top down to it. But in a lot of cases, it's been things that has been a little more organic with in terms of bottom up. So with thinking maps, especially, that was decided it was just going to be at the middle schools. In 2009, I was trained along with one of my colleagues, and the deal was that she and I would be trained. We would go to the trainer of trainers, and then we would become the district trainers, but we were only training the middle schools. So only middle schools were getting thinking maps. And then when Common Core really kind of was integrated into everything we did, we went to our boss and we said, this is insane that only middle school students get this. We need to teach our kids how to use thinking maps and how to plan their ideas and think things out when they're babies in kindergarten. We have to get them started earlier. So at that point, it became a little more bottom up, where we were pushing and saying, this needs to be district wide. And then we got the okay to bring it district wide. So there's a little bit of both to it, for sure. But it seems like there's not a whole lot of new, with the exception of our new adoptions.
So with that, thinking about, you gave us a little bit of an overview, Jody, which ties us into question number one, like, what are your district initiatives? Mm-hmm. Are there anything kind of new besides, I heard you kind of say some of the GLAD stuff, the thinking maps. Is there anything new as far as district initiatives that has rolled out in the last few years?
Well, we have a new TK5 ELA adoption and a new 6-8 ELA adoption. And
what are those?
We have, what is it, Wonders for TK5, and we have Amplify for 6-8 in ELA. And then we are looking at new adoptions for math for next year. So that will be another new initiative for next year. But right now we're just focusing on the ELA. So I would say that that's like the newest thing that we have going on with initiatives.
And that's kind of one of my hopes for this chat, is for people to kind of cross streams a little bit with initiatives and kind of say, like, well, you guys are doing wonders, we're doing some wonders too, and maybe what are some of those things that make it successful. Jumping over to you, Carly, what are the initiatives that are going on as far as your school and or your district?
So we also adopted Wonders. K5, I can't honestly tell you what's a 6-8. I'm only in the K5 world. And we don't have a math adoption yet. We are trying to focus on math instruction at my site. We're doing a big focus on lesson study around performance tasks and number talks. We started off with number talks and moved on to performance tasks, but we have an amazing STEM TOSA at my site, Mandy Smith, who's been facilitating these lesson studies. I don't think every school doesn't have that. So that's been our focus at my site. Since we're a STEM magnet school, our big focus is integrating the Wonders curriculum with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we've been creating thematic units and looking at what is out there so that we can make it more thematic using the Wonders program that we already have adopted. I am not absolutely positive about the district initiatives. Probably get in trouble for saying that, but I don't know. I know that, I'm at one site, which makes me I have a little bit of, blinders on to the rest of everything. I know that that's really, right now we're focusing on Wonders and what it can do for us, and what kind of diving into that. It's our first year doing that, trying to figure out how to make it work.
And so, how is that going? Like, trying to meld the Wonders? Do you find yourself kind of more and the STEM, trying to go more towards the standards, go more towards the curriculum?
So at our site, we start with an NGSS standard, a really encompassing NGSS standard. So that's what we did on our last PD day. Is and our third grade actually piloted this. Is we took an NGSS standard and then built the unit around that, and pulled in Wonders resources to build the NGSS or the thematic unit. So we took Wonders stories, we took pieces from the comprehension toolkit, we took EIE units, we took mystery science lessons, and then built an entire unit around everything that we had available to us, versus starting with, I don't know, something different. So we started with NGSS and then built our units around that. So far, the third grade unit has been extremely successful. The kids are highly engaged. It was all around endangered animals, and they took really great stories from the Wonders curriculum. We took, Google Expeditions, we've done Hyperdocs, and then built an entire unit around that. So far, it's been really successful. We'll see how the other grade levels go.
No, that
awesome.
that sounds really awesome. For sure. It's really good to hear that you're kind of starting with the standard and not getting lost in the curriculum is so often sometimes the case. It's interesting. I do hear a lot of people that have recently adopted Wonders. So it's obviously something I need to learn more about for my teachers. But you guys have any thoughts on that?
I just want to know, Carly, is this your first year with Wonders?
It is. It's our first year with Wonders. It's a curriculum. It has great parts. That's the thing about any curriculum. It has great pieces to it. It has wonderful stories. There's the story that is on the whooping cranes in third grade, and that's kind of the core story that we built this unit around. There's fantastic pieces of literature in there, and there's fantastic pieces that we have used to integrate into these thematic units that we're building.
That's really cool.
That's fun.
We've been asked to use the program to fidelity. So we haven't had an opportunity to really build a whole lot of thematic anything yet. We're just kind of getting teachers to understand all of the pieces that go along with it because it's so encompassing. But what I've really liked, for the amount of time that I was able to work with some of our TK through 5 teachers before I stepped into this role, I really liked the fact that the science standards are kind of integrated in, and it shows you like this standard can be used here and this story fits with this standard, because as we move forward with our NGSS initiatives, which will be next year and following, it's really helpful to have that so that teachers don't have to like make things up.
Exactly. Yeah, there's really strong ties to NGSS, and that's been really powerful as we've moved through. We don't want teachers to feel like it's one extra thing to teach thematically. We want them to feel like, okay, well, this story weaves into this standard and you can do it with this. And the writing piece is built right in if we use this strategy. And so we found that the nonfiction texts have been great.
Yeah.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit, we'll take looks like a question from the Twitter chat, and then kind of maybe weave back into the questions. So along initiatives, here's one question from Owen. When does initiative become a standard practice? And I think that's kind of one of the themes, if you guys kind of want to touch on that now. How do you get an initiative into more than just an initiative? Like obviously Jody, you've been doing GLAD for what, 15 years? Is it still initiative? Is it standard practice? How do we do that?
That's an interesting question. I think at this point it's standard practice, but it's still considered an initiative because as new teachers come in, it's still something that requires training. So we still have to make sure that we are ensuring that all of our teachers have that proper training and they've gone through everything they need to go through, and then coaches are following up and just kind of continuing to support teachers as they learn this new methodology or whatever it is you want to call it. So I think at this point, that's probably not really truly an initiative anymore, but it's still being treated as such.
And I think that's a problem for a lot of districts, right? You get all these people that are turning over. How do you kind of sustain this? Is why some of those things end up being an initiative. Mm-hmm. Carly, any thoughts from you? When do you get an initiative into standard practice? How do you do that? The $2 million question, right?
Yeah. I think that when it just becomes second nature and it's not a question in the classroom, this is just what we do and this is just how we do it, then it's not really an initiative. But at the same time, an initiative kind of gives it that importance, and it is important as a district to feel that you're all doing something together to make a difference. So I don't know when, even though it's standard practice, like for example, GLAD is incredible, and we used to have GLAD trainings. I wish that we still did. It's probably it's thematic teaching, which is what we're trying to do. I think that we still, a lot of us that have GLAD training still teach that way. And so as we're building these thematic units, we're pulling out our old GLAD strategies. Oh, let me pull out this folder of all these amazing songs that I learned when I had GLAD training, but we don't have the training anymore. I think that things come and go a lot in my district, more so than I wish that they did. But then I think it just depends. Some of us kind of hold on to it a little bit more than others, but some district initiatives may be, hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
I think that a district initiative, when it's no longer a question of whether or not you do it, but at the same time, a district initiative means that it's a focus of everyone. And like Jody said, like as teachers come on board, they get the training for this, and it's an important part of you as a district. I'm not sure that there is necessarily a line that it becomes not an initiative anymore. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Especially since I'm thinking back on that, there's not everyone's always going to be in the same place with anything that we do. So even like if we say this, GLAD initiative or this Thinking Maps initiative, like everyone's at a different place in their journey. And as coaches, we still have to support teachers in that. So even if it's standard practice, there's still support that's necessary. And it's still something that the district and the administrators are expecting to see when they go into classrooms. So to me, it just kind of remains an initiative then. I don't know if we can like take it off the table as one.
So I'm sorry, trying to multitask. Great conversations, great comments. We'll pause you guys for a second. And Joe, if you want to jump in and introduce yourself, who are you? What's your role? And maybe tell us a little bit about some district initiatives you got going on.
Hey, everyone. My name is Joe Young. I'm the math and STEAM coach in Palo Alto. And just reading through the Twitter feed and hearing the conversation earlier about Wonders, the ELA adoption from, I guess, several people, and I know Carly and Jody just mentioned it as well. In Palo Alto, we've been using the Teachers College Reading and Writing Program for Writers Workshop and Readers Workshop, and that's been for a few years now. So this year is our first year of implementation of new math curriculum, and it's using Bridges in Mathematics with Number Corner as well. And we also, in the elementary ed, we're piloting new social studies curriculum because the new social studies frameworks. And then as well, we're anticipating next school year to pilot NGSS curriculum. So there's been a lot of change year after year.
Sorry, trying to, Joe, multitask between listening to you and, of course, being in with the Twitter conversation as well. That's one thing I kind of, hearing some of you guys talk about it, it's always interesting. We have a lot of initiatives going on in my district, and I don't know if NGSS is going to be on the books for next year or if it's going to be another year, but I know it's going to come whether it's a initiative or not, right? So we'll see, one step at a time, I guess.
And I think the big thing about that as well is that when we've been doing a lot of the professional development around, well, certainly for me in my role as a math and STEAM coach, I've been digging into NGSS a lot, and with social studies as well, just the social studies framework, it's a lot about inquiry-based learning. And so using that as the thread in math, in social studies, and then of course next year in science, it's not something that's going to freak out. Hopefully it won't freak out teachers, just to keep that thread of inquiry-based learning and just letting the kid discover things and really go through that productive struggle as well of asking questions and using the QFT. It's a question formation technique. So just in science, of course, using a phenomenon to kick off the questioning and the inquiry, and then really just a whole shift of, for years now, we've been talking a lot about, or in education, we've been talking a lot about going student-centered. And so really inquiry-based learning is student-centered because it's coming from them. And as sure, the teacher is going to guide the learning and knows that a certain destination at the end with the standards or whatever it may be, but getting the kids to just really go into it and get excited about it.
So again, kind of on the same thread, moving over to question number 2. You guys kind of touched a little bit on this, kind of which initiatives you support, but looking at those initiatives, obviously you don't have, equal time between all of them, all the things on your plate, right, Jody? All the things. And
All the
so
things.
how do you decide, how do I spend my time? Do I spend it on one chunk on one big thing? Do I just juggle it between all those things? What is a little bit of the method to your madness? So Joe, why don't you pick who goes next, Jody or Carly, since you were up?
Let's go with Jody.
Why me?
Okay, let's go with
All the things.
Let's go to Jody.
Okay, so how do I prioritize my time? Right now, my time is prioritized to the one middle school that I'm assigned to. It's as far as, taking care of the kids and the teachers. But really my role is to support the technology integration. So if we're considering technology integration a district initiative, which, I mean, the district purchased all the devices, so they're expecting us to use them. That's how I dedicate my time. So then it's, do I dedicate myself to the breakout EDU aspect, or am I teaching HyperDocs, or am I focusing on Google, or, where do I focus? And there is no focus, and I don't divide my time well when I'm in the tech coach role, because I just try to meet everybody where they are and do the things that they need. So this is not a great question for me to answer, because all the things.
Hey, that's what we all do on some level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carly?
So as we became a STEM magnet school last year, one of the big pieces that I felt very, very strongly about as we dove into this new era was computer science education. So that's been a huge focus of mine. We see that there's not a lot of students, a lot of girls, a lot of students of color going into computer science, and our school is a Title I school, and I felt like we really needed a strong computer science focus at our site. So I teach computer science at our school, K-5. I see every class every other week. And then in my off times of not seeing classes, then I go in for technology integration. So we have, like Jody said, we did purchase all of these devices. So we're one-to-one Chromebooks from first through fifth. Yeah, it's pretty cool. First through fifth grade. And then we also have iPads, carts of iPads that we have for the classes. And we also have Chromebook cart for our kindergartners. So I support the teachers as they integrate technology, and our teachers are fantastic. They teach through HyperDocs. They all are on Google Classroom. They are all giving feedback to their students. They're actually integrating technology well, not using it as a, just to consume information. Their students are actually creating with the technology. So I support that in the classroom, in addition to the computer science aspect. As we got the devices, we wrote we put into a technology plan, and we wrote down what standards we wanted to really focus on as we integrated the technology. And then I focus on those standards as we implement the technology.
Wow. I mean, do you feel that, Carly, that's kind of throughout your whole district? Do you feel like it's isolated in your school? How does your district do at kind of working together?
For which technology, or for computer science?
Just kind of planning. I mean, what you did with your school takes a lot of planning, right? And getting people on board and be able to kind of do that teaching at that level.
So we are the only STEM magnet school, so I think we're kind of different in that way, and the way that we do what we do. But we do have people come through to come talk to us and see what we're doing at our site. We freely share what we're doing. It's kind of like I said, since we're the only STEM magnet school in the district, we're a little bit different in how we implement the technology. But I think that people do notice what we do there. We're always happy to share what we do, and I give professional development at district conferences and training. So if anyone wants to come see what we do, but I am site-based, so I'm not a district level TOSA. I'm a site TOSA, so I can't really completely speak to what they're doing at the district level, but I do definitely encourage the computer science. I have really voiced my opinion that I think how important computer science education is at all schools, especially elementary level at our district. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
No, it doesn't. I'm looking at it from Howard, and I'm trying to figure out if it kind of connects to what you were saying earlier, Carly. Someone mentioned using language arts with NGSS thread using World of Wonders. Do I understand that correctly? How long would it take 1 to 2 teachers to develop this? What was your timeline?
We worked as a team. So there was the 3 third grade teachers, myself, and our STEM coach, and we kind of built the unit as they were teaching it and as we were supporting them. We integrated computer science and EIE and Wonders, and they're hoping to implement some math performance tasks as they go. We were on kind of a short timeline because we were trying to get this kind of squished in before our STEM and engineering fair that we had, our science and engineering fair that we had last Tuesday. I would say it probably took us about 3 to 4 weeks. But that was squished. I mean, that was kind of crazy, and we're still building it as we go and revising, which is ideal, obviously. But I mean, if you have a strong team and you have support, a couple of weeks to build, to teach, I would say these units, you're looking about a 6-week unit to teach.
Well, you guys, sounds like you guys definitely dove in there and did some good works on those for sure. Thanks, Howard, for your question. What about you, Joe? How do you kind of bounce all the different things that are on your plate?
So I just recently tweeted this as well about the question 3, and it's more about pacing and really identifying all the various projects or tasks or initiatives that I have in front of me, and making them actionable so that I can have a major focus, maybe let's say a month or sometimes every 2 weeks, and then I get the actionable task, break it down, a lot of backwards design as well, so that way I can really have those actionable to-do lists.
Do you find that your to-do list, like when you have these action items, do you feel like they all kind of take the same amount of work? For example, like action item A might be, doing this versus action item B might be kind of a larger project.
I think the biggest thing is that it's always in reflection when you can decide, or when you can think about how much work it really took. Sometimes when you're looking at the to-do list, you have this fear that it's going to take a lot longer than it possibly could, right? And so there's that, I don't remember where it is, but I read somewhere before about like the power of 5 minutes. And if you just devote 5 minutes to it, you've already gotten so much of it started that you can say, oh, I can another 5 minutes and I'm done with it, rather than procrastinating, thinking, oh, this is such a big thing, I'm going to wait for tomorrow. And tomorrow's going to be the next day and then next week. And so,
so the power of 5 minutes is kind of like just do it now. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Just devote 5 minutes for it, and if it goes beyond 5 minutes, sure, then you say, tomorrow I'll continue it, but at least you got something started, right? Because
I think we need to see a baby right now.
I know, right?
If we could see a baby, that'd be fantastic.
Commercial timeout.
Can we see a baby?
I don't. Maybe his foot.
Okay, just a foot. That's okay.
A foot's fine. Let's just see a little foot.
Foot for live, right?
Is this creating a digital footprint? No pun intended.
Oh, look at that! Hi, baby. Oh,
baby.
Hi, hashtag Jenna from Palo Alto.
All right, so awesome. Kind of jumping back in here, Joe. Thank you for sharing. More than a foot, right? And so one thing that I'm always kind of feel like teachers in my district are always feeling overwhelmed. I don't know if it's just the whole Common Core transition with a lot of changes that's going on. Maybe it's just in my district. I'm sure people are overwhelmed on every level. But how do you guys kind of deal with that?
We have a lot of support at my site. I can't speak to how important having a site base. I'm 50% and my colleague Mandy is full-time. She's our full-time STEM TOSA, and I am a 50% tech TOSA and computer science teacher. I cannot speak to the importance of having a site-based TOSA enough. I think that it makes such a big difference to have that on-site support, to know the kids, to know the teachers, to be able to go into any class at any moment, take over the class, help out, co-teach a lesson at any time with any class. It makes a huge difference. Our teachers are still overwhelmed, but it makes a big, big difference when you're asking these teachers to load their plate full of stuff, full of a lot of stuff, to know that there is someone on site all the time that's going to be able to jump in and help them out.
So kind of just that extra layer of support you find can be very helpful for people.
Yep.
What about, we'll switch up the order a little bit if that's all right with you, Jody. And what about you, Joe? As far as how do you deal with the overwhelmness of teachers that are like, or maybe that doesn't happen. Like teachers like, there's so many things on my plate, like, and you're asking me to do one more thing. How do you kind of help support those teachers or deal with them, if you will?
Yeah. So that's definitely a common phrase or a common response about like, certainly, of course, as a district TOSA, that I hear that so much because the teachers are always saying like, the district's adding more to my plate. There's so much more, or my principal is already adding stuff and the district now is adding stuff. And so a lot of it for me, my passion, I'm repeating this, as the math and STEAM coach. STEAM really is my focus, and it's about integration. So it's really challenging, but working through finding ways to integrate all the things that they can do instead of having to see it all in silos and doing like, there's of course value in having a dedicated writers workshop or a dedicated readers workshop, but if you can integrate it and you do reading and writing and science and math all together, then you're hitting so many things at the same time. And it of course takes a lot of careful thought into doing that. And as I mentioned, the mindset of the teacher, and that's the beauty of being able to be a coach, to be able to be a thought partner with them and try things out and co-teach it together, or as well reflect and say, that really bombed, and how can we change that up? Or gosh, that was really good, but there's one little piece that we can tweak to integrate some more. And then the more and more you do it, the more comfortable or more willing they're going to take risks to try to integrate.
So what I hear you saying is you just kind of try to connect the dots for people, or kind of help them fill in the gaps so it doesn't look more like pieces, it looks more like a puzzle.
Beautiful.
Before we jump over, sorry, Joe.
No, it's a tapestry of excellence and stuff.
A tapestry of excellence. You better tweet that out, Joe, before somebody else does, okay? But real quick, before we jump over to Jody over here, Carly got a shout out from Christine Dixon. It's so essential to have the ability to co-teach teachers and support them in the trenches. So luckily to be a site-based TOSA. For sure. I definitely missed that time as well when I was a site-based versus district-based TOSA. What about you, Jody? How do you help kind of those overwhelmed people?
I think I'm the one doing the overwhelming in a lot of cases. Like here I am like, oh, let's do this awesome technology thing or whatever. So my goal really is just to make teachers feel comfortable with whatever it is we're doing, and make sure that they understand why we're asking them to do whatever it is. So we have 9 schools in our district, and there are 10 academic coaches. I'm the only one who isn't site-based, and that's the first time that we've done site-based coaches is this year. So in the past, we had like specialty coaches. So we had like our math coaches and our GLAD coach and our ELA coaches. And of course, I've been the ed tech coach the whole time. But this year, all of our specialty coaches became site-based, which is really challenging for the coaches, but is really beneficial for the teachers, even though the coaches really, many of them are still sort of sticking to what they're most comfortable with. So I don't know how much our ELA coaches have really dived into the math as much. I know our math coaches are really heavily supporting Wonders, so they've had to, do their thing with Wonders. But for me, I just really focus on the relationships and just making teachers feel comfortable that, I'm a safe place, and if they need to vent about all the things, that they can do that to me, and then I'm going to help them move forward no matter what, when I'm coaching them. So the best I can do right now, because like I said, a lot of times I feel like I'm the source of the overwhelm.
I know, right? And that's kind of the tricky part, is kind of be like, hey, this is kind of one thing I think I put it in a tweet, but it's like, I'm not here to push one more thing on you. I'm just here to kind of be there to support you when you need me. And I think that kind of ties back to what you were saying, as far as the whole relationship goes. Mm-hmm. So awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. It looks like just kind of trying to sum it up, and of course navigate between the Twitter chat. We had kind of relationships, connecting the dots, and really being there. Those were kind of the 3 tips we had from you awesome sauce people there. And so kind of touching on what you just talked about, Jody, is how do you highlight the importance of your initiative? You have teacher A that's like overwhelmed, and you're like, well, I'm here to help you with blah, blah, blah. I know you're overwhelmed, but this is important, or dedicate your time. How do you make people aware of the importance, Jody? Jumping back to you, that we can ping pong.
How do I make people aware of the importance? I think people are aware of the importance, and we're at the point now with our technology integration. We've been 1-to-1 at our middle schools, and they're taking their devices home now for the second time this year. We've been 1-to-1 for 3 years or so. And our teachers are all like desperate for more. They want the devices in their classroom. So now it's more of an issue of how can I get into classrooms and work with teachers to make sure that they're using the devices in student-centered ways, and in ways that allow students to amplify their voices and make choices, versus let's sit and do ST math for an hour.
There's a little rap there. What did you say? We use their voices to make some choices?
And make choices, yes. Yeah. I'm a poet.
And you didn't even know
anyway,
it. Yeah.
I did. I was about to launch into Hamilton there for a minute. So
hey, you can go. We can pause for a second.
I'm going to try to refrain. Yeah. So I'm not sure that I really even answered that question, but that's sort of where I am right now.
Cynthia appreciated the shout out. All right. You too, Cynthia. So, how about you, Carly? It's like, which question are we on again?
I don't know that you're going to like this answer. I don't push initiatives. When I walk into people's classrooms, I meet them wherever they are. Sometimes it might be that they have a student that at that moment they need me to take out of the classroom and do some special one-on-one work. They may need help with the technology. They may need help with Wonders. I try to remember what it's like to be in the classroom every time I walk into somebody's room. It's really hard because I've been out of the classroom for a few years now, but I know that when I was in there, some days I could think of all the district initiatives and I could put that on the forefront, and I could think of that, and that could be the first thing on my mind. And there'd be days that's the furthest thing from my mind, and all I need is to get through the day, and all I need is for someone to come in and help me with this right now. So I try when I walk in to just be open to whatever they need, because it's all about relationships and it's all about just meeting them where they're at. I don't think that's maybe the popular answer, but that's what I do. And I try to just support them with wherever they're at. And then we'll work towards that. Eventually we'll get there. They're going to be where they need to be, and I'll support them with wherever they're at. But at that moment, when I walk into their classrooms, it's whatever they need at that moment. And district initiatives are not at the forefront of my mind when I'm walking into their classroom. It's whatever they need me to do. they'll book me for certain things and we'll work towards that and we'll talk about it after hours. But I may have an idea when I walk into their classroom of what I think we should do, and it may all go out the window because there's something else that they need me to do in that moment. So,
and that's definitely, I feel like, as far as for me too, I would agree that being your role as like a TOSA is you're there, and I felt like Joe, you kind of shared similar messages in there. You're a teacher, and I'm kind of here to support you with what you need to. And again, I feel like Jody, you kind of echoed something similar, maybe to what Carly said, because I mean, you can't force somebody to change their practice, right? And so you can be like, hey, I'm here for you, I can support you, but I'm going to get you with what you need to do and do our best. So, Joe, any other thoughts on that?
Somebody, real quick, somebody in last week's chat said, it was like a mic drop moment. They were like, build relationships, not agendas.
mm-hmm.
And I thought that was, I mean, that totally relates to what we're talking about here too, in that, you know, you go into the classroom and your whole, we're just helper bees, right? Like we just want to be helpful, and I don't need to push my agenda on you. Well, let's make it work for what you need.
For sure. Buzz.
Okay, Joe, you're up.
So I think the role of a coach is so challenging, right? Because you have your superiors that have those district level initiatives, or if you're a site-based person, you're hearing it from your principal. And so, of course, as a teacher of social assignment, you're a teacher still. And whenever we're so lucky and we're so privileged to be able to go into teachers' classroom when we're invited, or whenever we have that chance to partner with them, and that clearly, of course, speaks to the importance of relationships first, to be able to have that trust for teachers to invite us in, or for us to be able to partner with them in the staff lounge, or to even just meet during their release time. That's so precious that they want to say, hey, I have this idea, tell me what you think. Or I might even just, oftentimes I would say, hey, I have this this lesson that I've been thinking about. May I try with you?
Mm-hmm.
It's really to continue to improve myself, as well as build trust together, right? So it's such a challenging place because we have the initiatives and the background, and yet, of course, you want to make sure that you address, or you build those relationships, and you go in exactly with what the teacher needs at that moment. I think the key thing about this is that for me, there's some bottom lines where I know that when I go into a classroom, I don't want to see certain things. Like I don't want to see kids on the outskirts, the historically underrepresented minorities, just being ignored, or the rambunctious kids, like they are in the back and they're not cared for. And so whatever the initiative is, or whatever the teacher is, those are the first things that I want to see, is that if all kids are safe, and if all kids are there learning, right, no matter what it is. I don't know where I was going with that, but just really about like students first. There are some bottom lines for me, and those bottom lines really trump any type of initiatives, because it's about student safety and student identity in that classroom.
So kind of on that, there's kind of some interesting conversations definitely around in the chat, kind of about having, putting that same kind of thing, Joe, putting students first, and making sure our initiatives are student centered. And then here, just on the other hand, also interesting, sometimes thinking about the way we're framing things. Sometimes initiatives that one person maybe think for the best needs of students or maybe not, depending, of course, on your perspective. And so things like, when is it being like, oh, we need to really push this program versus, this program, two different perspectives, thinking about it, well, this is going to help with 21st century skills versus, this is going to help with something else. And so do you guys have any thoughts on that particular? What do you do when some of these initiatives maybe that are supported aren't necessarily in the best interests of the students, even though other people may perceive them to be?
You're gonna get us in trouble, Ben.
I know, right? Don't worry. We only have like 12 viewers here. I don't think that this is probably not going to go viral, but
Joe, you go first.
This is a hard one, right? I mean, I think it's for me, and I'll let you guys get some think time. For me, I think you just kind of have to do your best, right? And you do what's right, and you can only kind of control what's in your sphere of influence. Meaning that I think, hey, I don't have, maybe this other department has this other thing that I don't necessarily agree 100% with, but I'm just going to kind of not sabotage it, but I'm going to do what I can to support my initiative. I don't know. It's always hard when you have people navigating around students, right? And what's best for them. But it's also hard. Like, is test scores the best thing? Right? Is that what should drive our initiatives? Is it the whole child that should drive our initiatives? I guess these are larger conversations that maybe are above our TOSA pay grade. What do you guys think?
For sure. Above the TOSA pay grade.
Above the TOSA pay grade. Any other thoughts on that topic?
I think that the big thing for me is that if there's ever an initiative that I question or I'm not sure what the purpose of it is, it tells me that I need to listen a little bit more. Really, because whoever has that goal or the initiative, it's like assuming positive intent that they have the kids in mind first. But if it doesn't make sense to me, all I know now is I need to listen more to try to understand more and to figure out what is it that they want. And certainly, again, positive intent. If it is about all kids first and it's student centered, then how it's going to be better because now I get to understand what they want, where they're coming from, and then to put our minds together and collaborate on ways to make it happen, right? And certainly, if it's something that doesn't feel quite right, then because I've listened, then now it's my chance to be able to share with them, and so for them to listen as well. Some way that I can influence or impact the way, if it's a little bit offline from student first, right? Student centered.
So here's kind of, again, on the same topic that a tweet in the conversation: the best admin I know go rogue and change the directions of the organizations with their dynamism. I'm probably saying that wrong. And so that would go with the response, right? It's above our TOSA pay grade. And that's why we need some dynamic, admins to be able to kind of make, I guess, the change at that level. How's that for a stopper on the topic?
Perfect.
All right. So I think this is I'm going to kind of maybe skip over this question a little bit, go back to the chat and kind of talk about there, because I think we kind of touched this one a little bit. How do you encourage teachers that don't buy into our particular initiative? I don't know. It kind of goes with, it seems like a lot so far we're working with the people that do buy in. I know that's kind of my case, but is there anything you guys kind of do if you have that? Maybe that, for example, maybe there's one strong teacher in a grade level at a site that's just like, I don't know why we're doing this. This is blah, 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 blah. How do you kind of handle some of those situations if you have ever?
How do we get teachers to buy into an initiative? Is that is that the
question?
Well,
how do you deal with maybe, yes, it's kind of more specific. How do you have teachers that not necessarily don't buy into it, but are vocal about it, that are kind of counterproductive to an initiative that you think is important or that you're supporting? Or again, maybe you guys don't have that.
I think it comes back to what Joe was saying about listening. Like, why we just kind of have to ask more questions and have a better understanding about why teachers feel the way they do about certain things. Because that way, it's just important to listen to everybody's ideas. Maybe they have a misunderstanding of what the initiative is or how it's going to affect their students, or maybe it's because they haven't yet had that aha moment of how is this beneficial for me? Like, they've thought about how this is going to affect me, but how is this going to make my life better or easier or whatever it is that we try to bring to teachers? And so a lot of times that the initial I'm against this and I think it's terrible isn't out of it's out of a lack of knowing exactly and being comfortable with exactly what it's going to do to them, if that makes sense.
So it does, and I think it kind of ties to David's answer. He says, you mean those teachers that gave me the look in staff meetings when we bring it up? And he says, take times to build connections and relationships. So it's kind of like what you're saying. I think Jody is just kind of really listening to it and knowing those people. And Christina kind of said the same thing, having honest conversations to better understand their view and make a plan that works for everybody. Go ahead, Carly.
I think it's also about going in there and helping support them with what it looks like logistically. I think that we have these ideas and the teachers see it and they know what's on their plate. They know what they're asked to do and they know what their classrooms look like. And so when they're asked to do one more thing, if we can go in and say, you know what, I'm going to teach this. I'm going to co-teach this lesson with you. I'm not putting this on your plate and then leaving you out to dry. Like, I'm going to come into your classroom and I'm going to help you with that. So I'm going to support you. I think that's the leap. That's the gap that we need to fill. We can't just throw it on them and then say, well, you might not understand this, but it's really good for your kids. I promise. We have to go in, we have to walk the walk with them. We have to go in and say, you know what, I'm going to teach this with you. I'm going to see what this looks like in the classroom, because there's been times when I think this is going to be awesome. This is going to be great for your kids. And I walk in and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back and let's revise. Let's look at this and let's see how this can work for your classroom, your grade level, because I'm thinking about kindergarten and what I think is going to work. They are the experts in their classroom. So we have to meet them where they're at and use what they know about their kids and their grade level. We come with an idea and a plan, but we have to be welcome to revisiting it and revising it based on what they bring to the table too. So I think having them understand that we will revise it and we will listen to them is huge. We got to say like, hey, you know what? This is what I thought was going to work, but whoa, it did not. And let's see what you can bring to the table. Let's make it work for you. And I think that's the biggest change that I think we need to make.
Very nice. I think that sounds like very powerful. So thank you for sharing.
Joe has his hand up.
All right, Joe.
So I'm going to parallel this to a number talk, right? In math, number talk is definitely a very powerful structure. With a number talk, if you do a problem in an equation, everyone may get to the answer, but they get to it in a different way. And I think that's the case here as well. If there's a certain initiative or a certain goal that the district has, it's really about each person having their own way of getting there. Now, certainly some people may get there super efficient, right? And some people may need a little bit more time. And that's, of course, as I mentioned and Jody just reiterated, as coaches, we need to listen to them and figure out, hey, what's holding them back? What's the hurdle for them? Maybe they misunderstood something. And so for us, we can guide them there. But it's also not guiding them, or Howard just asked me this question on the Twitter chat. It's not guiding them based on the path that I chose, but it's really guiding them based on a path that they're going to choose or that we choose together. So he was asking, like, do you want to is it ultimately getting the teachers on board? And it's not about getting them on board to a certain prescribed path. It's getting them to go on their path, and for us as coaches to join them on their path. So kind of like a number talk, again, we will all end up at the same destination, that answer to that equation, but we get to that in different ways, lots of different strategies.
I like how you kind of weaved in your initiative there, Joe. That was pretty good. Real quick, kind of in our last about 6 minutes here, we had our last question, and Ramona was kind of really curious to bring it to this conversation, the fact that how can we work together as a TOSAchat PLN to support each other in our particular initiative? So final thoughts on that. Whoever wants to jump in.
We have to remind each other to reflect and that we're teachers first. That's where we started. I think that's the biggest that's the kind of thing I get being at a site, is just reminding myself that I'm a teacher first. That's where I came from. I was in the classroom, and just constantly reminding myself of what it's like to be in the classroom and be a teacher, and then growing from there. If we can remind each other of that, and I don't know what the word is, but just keep ourselves level-headed like that, I think that will help us not get to be in that place where we're top down, that we're bottom up, and that we're on the same team.
Support each other. Awesome. Thanks, Carly. Joe?
I would say go back to the foundation of being with kids. In the classroom, I always, whenever I had a hard day, recess was, I would spend my time on the playground. Being with the kids re-energized me and gave me the reason why I was there. And so as a coach or as an educator, no matter which role, those on TOSAchat or watching the feed right now, no matter what role you're in, classroom teacher, instructional coach, or even sometimes, classroom aide, or whoever you are, go back to whatever that foundation is for you. And oftentimes it's always with the kids. And so just go and spend time with kids, and that's get to know them, know what they need, what they want. And then, of course, as Carly said, be in the classroom with the teachers. As a coach, you go in the classroom as a teacher with the teachers, get back there, right? And don't forget what's in the classroom. Go through the struggles. Yeah, that's it. I'm echoing exactly what Carly just said.
Thanks, Joe. Awesome. What do you think, Jody?
Is the question is how we support one another?
Yes.
So I think continuing to participate in groups like this, and continuing to maintain our self-efficacy and building our self-efficacy and how we feel about what we do, and connecting with others here and at Q Rockstar TOSA, and all of the things that we do to continue these relationships, because these are we are each other's people, right? And yes, we're teachers first, but we are teachers in a very special assignment, and we have a very important job to not just support students, but support teachers, which means that we need to support ourselves. And so reaching out and finding our niche within this group, but also finding others who do what we do. For example, we're looking to adopt Bridges, and I know that Jim, that Joe adopted Bridges, and that Rachel from Montana has adopted Bridges as well. And so I know that now I have an additional little pocket of people that I can go to when I have questions about how do I support teachers with Bridges. So just continuing to throw your ideas out into this group and saying, hey, we're doing this, or we're doing this, or we're doing this. And we all jump to each other's rescue. It's part of the beauty of this group right here.
So I think definitely kind of powerful as far as just kind of being aware. And for me, Jody, that was one of the reasons I think I wanted to do this chat on initiatives, is sometimes, we forget who's doing what, or, some of the cool things that we are like, oh, this person's this. So, I want to do a project with math. I totally, forgot that I needed to have Joe for some ideas, those kind of things. So bringing that awareness, but maybe we can end with a few comments from the chat. Number one, Christina Bustamante. What's up, Christina? Kind of reiterated, I think, what Joe and Carly were saying, especially Carly, I think, with the reminding teachers what it's like to be a teacher, right? Some teachers feel like some admin don't remember what it's like to be in their classroom, and even some coaches, and as in our role, kind of keeping that in the forefront of remembering, who and what we are, and supporting those teachers is important. So I think kudos to you for saying that. And again, Lee kind of reiterated that, is just being able to have somebody there and remembering that point of view, right? So thank you guys for joining me in tonight's tweet and chat. It's been definitely challenging for me moderating the both, and lots of fun though, kind of seeing the two conversations going on at once.
You did awesome.
Yeah, good job. Good job, Ben. I was trying, but
I couldn't tweet, but I could read.
I read through some. I retweeted a couple, but
I laughed at myself earlier because I totally missed that last question, and it went off, and that's when Jody was saying, "Was the question that?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, That's totally
I wasn't trying to be like rude about that. I just wanted to make sure that because what I was thinking, and then you guys were answering, and I'm like, wait, did I hear the question right?
I didn't answer. I think that it's also nice that in TOSAchat we do have people who are still in the classroom, who are teachers. I mean,
Totally.
We say this all the time, but TOSAchat, we're all teachers on a special assignment. And I think that in TOSAchat, it's really awesome to have people who are still in the classroom to just give us those little reminders and those little heads up about what we may think is one way, and it might not be that way anymore. So I think that's kind of, maybe I'll go back and answer my question because I didn't do it correctly.
Hey, you know what? It's all about a conversation. So last thing, Carly, can you tell us a little bit about next week, what we have coming down the pipes?
Oh, yes. Scott Titmus is going to be moderating TOSAchat next week. He will be talking about technology integration and what meaningful technology integration looks like. He is an awesome Flipgrid ambassador and going to be also moderating Ditchbook Chat in a couple months. So look out for that. It's going to be awesome.
So from this conversation, it looks like, who knows, we may have a future guest moderator, TOSAchat, coming in and trying maybe some Facebook Live with TOSAchat. I know they're really good at that. And who knows, maybe at some point we'll give this another shot and see if there's either you guys want to jump back in or maybe some other people out there from the TOSAchat world. So it's 9:01. It's that time. We turn into pumpkins. Joe?
I'm going to plug one future chat.
Please.
Gosh, when is it? Like March 5th, Trevor McKenzie, author of Dive into Inquiry, and he has a second book coming out. He'll be moderating TOSAchat, all about inquiry, again, more inquiry stuff. So let's keep diving into inquiry.
Yay!
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Anything else to add?
No.
Nope.
All right.
Good job, Ben.
Time for bed.
Thank
Nice
you, guys.
work.
And thank you for joining us, Coach's Corner. This is implementation, and we will see you again in the future. And have a good evening.
Bye.